Ubisoft stock plummets 50%, and that is absolutely massive in the wake of Star Wars Outlaws' failure. And I am proud of everyone here for talking about this and not pre-ordering it and not buying. If a game is this bad, this messed up, this broke, this canon destroying, this fan hating, then it should not be bought, and I'm proud that people did not buy it. But we already predicted that Outlaws is going to be a massive blow to Ubisoft because Ubisoft does not release enough games to justify an absolute disaster like this. But the best part is Assassin's Creed Shadows is yet to come. And that, again, I said that this potentially could be almost the end of Ubisoft as we know it, because these are way too massive of failures. And obviously Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to fail as hard as possible to ignore.
Between all of the projects that they've delayed or canceled to the fact that certain games just have not met sales expectations, to just the staleness of the releases that we have seen from Ubisoft.
Look at how sad Young is that his favorite WoW company and Star Wars Outlaws, the best game of the year, is not doing well.
Company has seen better days, both in terms of the kind of output they used to have, but also from a corporate standpoint when it comes to how investors see them. There's not a whole lot of confidence, and Ubisoft was hoping that Star Wars Outlaws would allow Ubisoft to highlight that there's strong tidings ahead, but...
This is already incorrect, by the way. Ubisoft's forecast for the sales of Star Wars Outlaws was already ridiculously low, as we know from reporting and sources and whatnot. That number was already low, and investors were questioning, why is it this low? It has never been this low, and yet you're putting the target goal this low? This is really bad. And well, it got worse.
But alas, it would seem as though Star Wars Outlaws, despite having the Star Wars name behind it, and it being one of those, big open world experiences, it ultimately...
I'm so happy, by the way, about this, because there's two things that all of these gaming companies, movie companies do constantly. They either rehash old IPs or things like that, or they try to get a license to make some kind of pile of trash with some kind of name that has a huge fan base attached to it. And for the longest time, that actually worked. Star Wars was a license to print money, no matter how bad the game was, no matter how bad the movie was, but the times are changing. People are absolutely done with this woke garbage. People are fed up with it, and people do not want to tolerate it. And people are way more keen on what they actually spend their money on, especially considering everything's expensive now. You can't just throw around money willy-nilly. So people are not going to buy things just because it has the Star Wars logo on it, because it has the Lord of the Rings name on it, or something like that. People are going to actually look at it and judge and then act. Beautiful.
Failed to meet certain expectations that would allow investors to feel more confident. And so we saw Ubisoft's stock value decline. So we have this report from Video Games Chronicle, this tweet that reads, Ubisoft share price has fallen to a near 10-year low since the release of Star Wars Outlaws. Analysts are attributing it to a poorer than expected start for the game and a sharp...
That is, by the way, in terms of stock analysis and, business and whatnot, this is devastating. This is literally what companies look like when they're gonna go bankrupt. Now, will Ubisoft go bankrupt? Now, someone's gonna flood some money in them and do things like that. But they are. But this current version of Ubisoft is dead. Massive changes will happen, and this current version of Ubisoft is gonna die. At least with the people currently in charge and the way that company handles things in general. There's no chance that it survives. It full restructure in that sense.
Sharp decline in interest in XDefiant. So you got Star Wars Outlaws, which is one of those big single-player experiences with some microtransactions and monetization elements here and there. And then we got XDefiant, which is a proper live service, their take on Call of Duty, essentially. And that has apparently, you know, it had a spike at the beginning.
No idea what XDefiant even is.
And then numbers have declined since. More information about Star...
I don't even know if that means it's a bad game. I'm just not a Call of Duty guy. I don't play Call of Duty. I don't play Fortnite. I don't do those games.
Star Wars Outlaws specifically and its performance can be found in this article by news outlet Reuters, which is where the original report came from. It reads right here that the French publisher Ubisoft's shares fell on Tuesday for a second consecutive day following a sluggish performance of its two recent releases. There's a combination of the muted reception of Star Wars Outlaws and then lower than expected interest for the free-to-play game XDefiant.
Muted reception? Are you kidding me? The reception is not muted at all. There are a lot of people talking about Star Wars Outlaws, but not in the way that you would want.
Fine. So the free-to-play model obviously comes with certain risks. While it is easier for people to...
First of all, Star Wars Outlaws is not only a woke mess, it's an absolute damn buggy mess.
Access, it means you'll likely get more players on board on day one. If you don't find a way to maintain them and find a way to engage them enough where they feel compelled to spend money on the monetization elements that will fund the game, then ultimately those free-to-play titles will become money sinks, and it seems as though that's what XDefiant is starting to become. The importance of these two releases, Star Wars Outlaws and XDefiant, is further highlighted here with this paragraph noting how there's been 4 years of negative cash flows amid game cancellations and delays. And so Ubisoft was hoping that these two games would make up for it. But with both of these titles falling short, Ubisoft, from an optics standpoint, is finding itself in quite a pickle. Now, right here, we have somebody from JP Morgan, an analyst, Daniel Kervin, who said, Star Wars Outlaws has struggled to meet our sales expectations despite positive critic reviews. While it's true that Star Wars...
Despite positive critic reviews? Oh no, the critics were not right? Wow, carve this in stone because that's monumental.
Outlaws critical reviews are leaning more towards positive. That doesn't necessarily mean that the reviews have been stellar either. Overall, it seems as though it's a very middling game, and I'll kind of get into...
Oh man, again, if you don't know who Yongya is, now you know fully, okay? Calling Star Wars Outlaws a middling game, and by the way, I just watched the clips where Mahler's playing Star Wars Outlaws, and the fact that Jabba the Hutt comes in and rescues them, because Jabba the Hutt is the most hilarious thing I have seen. Ah yes, Jabba the Hutt coming to the rescue in X-Wings. You can't make it up. It's just so sad and bad.
Why that is later on, but I think this JP Morgan analyst is overestimating the reception of the game. It was okay. And then the article for
the JP Morgan analyst literally does not probably understand what gaming even is, and he probably doesn't even want to be on games analysis to begin with because he doesn't understand it. But it's JP Morgan, so he's probably making more than all of us combined, so it is what it is.
Further highlights how the game's development budget was at least 30% higher than that of Assassin's Creed Mirage, and yet despite that, the game's performance on live streaming platform Twitch was actually lower than that of Assassin's Creed Mirage's by about 15%. And while Twitch data isn't a 100% accurate metric for a game's sales, comparing Twitch performance between games does allow you to see, you know, just kind of what the engagement of a game is like. And when you've got a game that costs more than a game that performed 15% better on Twitch, that kind of tells you that the interest surrounding Star Wars.
Oh man, is Young trying to be smart? Because now what he is saying is pretty dumb and arbitrary. You might as well just call it random gibberish instead of an actual thing, an actual word. Well, it is word salad. Instead of actually thinking about what you're saying.
Wars Outlaws wasn't as high as the company expected. The JP Morgan analyst's expectation was that Star Wars Outlaws would sell 7.5 million units by March of 2025, but after seeing the most recent results, Expectations were lowered by 2 million units, so now it is expected by the analysts
That is devastating, by the way.
that the game will actually sell roughly 5.5 million units by the end of March 2025, which aren't bad numbers. That's actually pretty decent, but we're talking about
No. No. That's less than 100 million revenue, by the way. That's less than 100 million sales. And the development of this game 100% was more than 100 million. That's one. I can already guarantee you that.
a Star Wars game that also required Ubisoft to license the IP, so some of that money does go to Disney, obviously. And so for them to make a profit and make enough of a revenue to entice and to excite.
Dude, every time Young moves his head, there's the sound of the microphone being hit or something. This guy literally makes roughly 5K every 2 videos or something like that. Well, okay, less, I'm over exaggerating this, but not by a huge margin, okay? And he can't get some guy off of Fiverr to fix his sound. I think he has had this problem of every time he moves his head, the microphone just gets hit and there's that boop 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 sound for months now.
And
I don't have perfect sound, but I can't actually waste 1K on some dude fixing it for me, okay? But he can. He can.
investors, and to allow this to be a big sort of green on the company's financial prospects, it needed to sell significantly more than that, and alas, that just didn't happen. The article briefly also talks about XDefiant, which had strong initial interest, but then we started to see a sharp decline in Twitch viewership, which for a live service game, especially one that's free to play, that is
every time he moves a little bit too fast, there's the boop boop sound. Can I actually replicate it on my microphone? Like that or something. If I can hear it, I'm damn sure you can hear it. It honestly really annoys me. Okay, good. Young, yeah, has a sponsor from Vessi. Sponsor me, Vessi. Okay, I'm cheaper and better than Young. And hopefully he can use this money to buy a goddamn new microphone.
Ubisoft's shares didn't stop at the disappointing sales numbers of Star Wars Outlaws and the disappointing performance of XDefiant. The shares plunged even further recently, in fact, earlier today, as of the recording of this video. So right here we have a Video Games Chronicle article whose headline reads, Ubisoft shares plunge again after investor urges company to go private. So we are talking about a decline of almost...
Yeah. Obviously, investors are saying that something needs to be done about this because, bro, the CEO's a complete imbecile, okay? There's no question about that. And, again, when Assassin's Creed Shadows hits, I think it's going to be worse than Star Wars Outlaws, because Star Wars Outlaws had technically less controversy when it came out. If you compare the amount of negativity towards Outlaws versus Shadows, it ain't even close, dude. Okay? Outlaws is doing fine in comparison. And again, the moment Shadows is released, it's completely Joker just for Ubisoft. Again, we already have heard the news about the physical box pre-order sales for this game, and that it is absolutely beyond pathetic. It is beyond pathetic. Now, obviously, physical copies are the minority, but the physical copies, I think, still make up for, like, I don't know, 10% of the sales? 20% maybe at maximum? So, it's a pretty good estimate way of actually gauging how many sales you're going to have. And the pre-order for physical is abysmal.
10% during trading as of the writing of this article. There's a share price that had declined significantly already because of poor than expected launch for Star Wars Outlaws and a sharp decline in interest for the free-to-play shooter XDefiant. Ubisoft has already been facing a lot of criticism from players for just...
Ubisoft is down 5% today, and that is today. In the past 5 days, 20%. In the past month, 26%. But the dips are just crazy. The dips for Ubisoft are just absolutely phenomenal here. In the last 6 months, it's 35%. In year to date, it's almost 50%. Ubisoft is just, it's just gutter garbage. It is just absolute gutter garbage. And since the end of August and start of September, it has been just on an absolute damn trajectory. It is insane.
Not a
And as you can see, boys, that means our voices matter. When we say something is bad and should not be made, and everyone is screeching in the goddamn exact quiet, maybe it's time to start listening, game companies. Look at how things like, for example, Space Marine, Baldur's Gate 3, and other examples like that are getting rewarded for not being woke trash piles. They're breaking records. Why? Because so little games actually try to be games and they're just political messages. What Star Wars Outlaws obviously is to a huge degree.
evolving their formula enough. The Ubisoft open world has become kind of a trademarked term for a very specific kind of game design that Ubisoft has recycled over and over and over again and applied essentially different skins on top of it. And while, there are mechanical differences between those games, just in terms of the gameplay loop, it's all very familiar, and it kind of feels like you're playing the same game over and over again. And so a lot of players and community members of Ubisoft IPs aren't pleased on that front. But then when it comes to investors, who are kind of the real customers of these corporations, we're getting to a point where hedge funds like AJ Investments are publishing open letters calling for strategic and structural changes at Ubisoft, and even calling for the resignation of CEO Yves Guillemot, calling for his replacement because they believe that his leadership.
I vote we get Bobby in here. If there is one original true G that can save this situation, it's Bobby Kotick, our man, the myth, the legend himself. There is no man better suitable for the job of straightening out Ubisoft than Bobby G. Kotick. He is a legend, and this world is not good enough for him. He could fix this. He could actually fix this. Okay? He was piloting Blizzard, the most ridiculously sinking ship of all sinking ships, for such a long time and keeping the floodgates closed. It's not even funny. I vote we put Bobby in charge of this mess.
Just isn't doing it for the investors who want to see this company grow and its share price have sort of a confident incline so that they can make money off of their investments. So
I can see it now. Tomorrow, Bobby Kotick, new CEO of Ubisoft. And the day after, Bobby Kotick, the just announced CEO of Ubisoft, already a salt stewardess. Imagine that. Oh, Bobby, you are a blessing to the world.
apparently, hedge fund AJ Investments urged in this open letter to the board to consider taking the company private, and then beyond that, implement a comprehensive cost reduction program and optimize staffing levels to be more comparable with industry leaders. On top of that, increase its focus on core IPs, so your assured moneymakers like, Assassin's Creed. You can say what you want about those games, but they sell tremendously well. Valhalla, I think, just did incredible numbers for Ubisoft, and Shadows, I think.
The people who are refusing to see the Vogue because, again, Young wants to do voice acting work because fame and all of that stuff, very important, obviously. He's not going to say anything because that just jeopardizes his chances. Ubisoft already lathered him up. I think it was this year, Frontiers of Pandora. Remember that absolute boring mess of mediocrity and sadness? Yeah, Young was lathered up and called that also a good game. That's an Ubisoft thing.
Is also likely going to do really well for the company. And then they're asking Ubisoft and the board to consider replacing its current CEO, Yves Guillemot.
Oh, Young. So innocent and stupid, but that's what communism does to you. Anyway, this was Quizzer Since End. That was young, yeah. And almost, wait a minute, wait.
Right here on
Young,
Young,
yeah.
I'll see you guys
young,
next time.
Young.
Yeah.
Young. Beautiful perfection. I'm so good at this. Bye.